You know, every restaurant is a buffet if you're willing to pay, especially here in Las Vegas, the all-you-can-eat capital of the world. Hello friends, it's me, Shin, and I'm on a quest to vlog every restaurant on the Las Vegas Strip as well as downtown on Fremont Street. I'm 148 in, and this week for restaurant number 149, I'm here at the Flamingo Las Vegas where I'm checking out Havana's 1957. Really happy to have you along. I'll see you inside. All right, everyone, and here I am seated at Havana's 1957. Now, this is a brand new restaurant, less than a week old here at the Flamingo, and I actually really like the vibe in here. Classic Cuban styling, that island theming in the wallpaper. It's classy yet approachable. There's a full bar out at the walkway as well as an attached coffee shop. Booths and tables for seating as well as a live performance stage. A really cool spot here. Now, regardless of the vibes, you know it's all about the food for me, so let's take a look at what they have to eat on the menu. So here is your lunch menu at Havana's. It's currently 3:45 in the afternoon, so it is still lunchtime. Let's take a look at what they have. Appetizers up top, spiced brine chicken wings, as well as ceviche, croquettes. Yeah, oh wait, what is this? The Cuban combo. Croquettes, ceviche, pork masitas, ropa vieja. Oh, okay, that makes it very easy to try a lot. We have some bowls, sandwiches, and burgers here. Various different bowls, salmon bowl, chicken bowl, poke bowls, Cuban sandwich, smash burger. Okay, yeah, very nice. A couple of salads here as well. And then here are your entrees. My tacos. Okay, so various tacos, pork chunks. What is this? The Cuban sampler has the chicken, ropa vieja, pork, white rice. Oh, okay, very nice. Oh, they're making it very easy for me to try a lot here. Vaca frita, the crispy flank steak, that's always a good one. They also have fish and chips, garlic shrimp scampi. Okay, so they also have some more palatable food for those who aren't feeling Cuban flavors. So here is your menu at Havana 1957. A nice mix of both Cuban and non-Cuban dishes here at Havana, and a lot I'm looking forward to trying today, because of course you know how it goes in my videos, every restaurant is a buffet if you're willing to pay. I'm gonna get a nice variety, and together we'll see what this place is all about. Appetizers are coming up first. I'll see you in a bit when it arrives. And welcome back, everyone. My appetizers got here. This is looking really good. Let me give you a view. So this is the Cuban combo, and it comes in a tower form, some chicken fingers, as well as their pork carnitas guacamole. Some really tasty looking dishes here. Let's give them a try. We'll kick things off with the carnitas guacamole. Really nice looking dish here. We got a chip with some of that guacamole and pork on it. Let's give it a shot. Oh, that is very good. A very, very flavorful appetizer here. I'm gonna start with my one critique. I'd say the chips here are just okay. They're a little bit thin. I wouldn't be surprised if these came out of a bag. In terms of texture, I wouldn't say it's stale, but I think it's a handful of hours away from getting there. It doesn't have the most satisfying crunch, but otherwise it's not bad. There's a decent corn flavor here. The guacamole and the pork is actually magic. The pork here is incredibly succulent. It's ultra tender. I could not believe how soft it was. Given the color, I was expecting a little bit more of a crust, but it's soft all the way throughout. It actually makes for a very satisfying bite. It is well seasoned. It has a nice, deep, savory flavor, and it goes along with this guacamole fantastically. The guac is straightforward but executed well, very creamy, very rich. It's well seasoned. You have a little bit of acid here as well, nice garlic levels, and the pico de gallo is providing a little bit of that additional heat. This is a very good appetizer. Now this does come along with plantain chips and not just those tortilla chips, so we'll give this a little bit of a dip as well. Let's give this a shot. That right there is the answer. Oh my gosh, these plantain chips are so good. They have the most airy crisp to them. Given the soft texture between the guacamole and the pork, having something this crunchy makes a really nice dichotomy of texture, very satisfying to eat. Despite being a plantain, you would think it has a bit of a sweetness. However, it is a little bit more smoky and savory. It complements this so well. That is truly a fantastic appetizer. I like that one a lot. Next up, the chicken fingers. Looks like a pretty standard chicken finger to me. We'll dip it into the honey mustard here. We'll give it a taste. Yeah, not bad. I'd say a pretty middle-of-the-road chicken finger here. The breading isn't exactly super crispy. The texture harkens to something that may have been frozen before. If these did come pre-packaged, I wouldn't be surprised. The chicken in the center is soft and tender. However, I wouldn't exactly say it's super juicy. It's just a bit on the dry side. Nicely seasoned though, you do have some good levels of salt and pepper here. It's certainly not a bland chicken strip. and I did get a nice sweet tangy heat from that honey mustard. All in all, I'd say this is pretty standard, not all that bad. If you've got some children or some picky eaters, I think they'll be just fine with something like this. They also come with fries. We'll give these a shot as well. Yeah, those are fine. Perfectly passable French fries here. A nice crisp to that exterior, relatively pillowy potato center, and some good starchy flavors. This is fine. They've got a potato starch coating to give it some extra crunch, and in general, it's been well seasoned. Perfectly enjoyable French fries here. Absolutely gonna double down on my statement. If you've got some young ones or some picky eaters, I think this is gonna be their go-to. Moving right along, let's try out the Cuban combo. This is ham croquettes, ceviche, pork masitas, ropa vieja empanadas, and truffled yuca fries with the cilantro aioli. You actually get to try so many of the dishes with this appetizer, which is perfect for me. Let's give them a shot. Let's start things off with the croquettes. A nicely fried croquette here. It is a little bit greasy on the outside, but we'll dip it into the sauce. Let's give this a taste. Yeah, you know, not bad. Now, as mentioned before, this is quite a greasy appetizer. My fingers are quite oily, so this does feel pretty heavy. You have something like a potato puree center, relatively mushy in texture, though it is well seasoned, a good starchy taste of that, and it does make some contrast from that crispy exterior. Now, this is a ham croquette, and so you do get a little bit of that smoky salinity from the ham. However, the texture of that ham is not all that great for me. It's something more like a ground ham, and so in conjunction with that soft mashed potato, it doesn't create a lot of texture variance, and so it just kind of feels like a bit of mush in the center. Both the ham and the potato together actually do make for a little bit of a salty aftertaste as well. I will say though that the cilantro aioli sauce is very good, a nice richness there, a good amount of garlic, and some freshness from that cilantro. It certainly brightens up the croquette quite a bit. You know, it's not bad, but I think if there's a little bit more texture to that ham, I would enjoy this a little bit more. Next up, yuca fries. You have your Cuban equivalent of French fries here. Nicely fried potatoes. And I'm usually a big fan of these whenever I go to any Cuban restaurant. Hopefully they're good here at Havana 1957. Yeah, it's good. Very well made yuca fries. Love the crisp on the exterior. Very crispy crunch, but it's incredibly airy in the center. Not a very dense potato. This is very good. Very lightly seasoned. The potato actually shines very well here. And you have a very light hint of truffle. Just a little bit of an earthy flavor coming through in the back end. Very subtle. I like the application here. Not a bad potato dish at all. That was nice. Next up, we'll try the pork masitas. This looks very similar to the pork that was on top of the guacamole. And so if it is the same, I'm already excited. Got a nice little forkful here. Pork masitas. Oh yeah, it's very good. Very similar to the pork that we saw on top of that guacamole, though just a slightly different texture. This was the texture I was first expecting when I tried that guacamole. A little bit more of a tougher exterior and a soft pork in the center. A little bit of that dehydrated skin from the bake was what I was expecting, and it works nicely here. It's just as well seasoned as the pork and the guacamole. You can definitely get the elements of cumin as well as oregano here. I love the addition of the pickled red onions. A little bit of that tang helps to cut through a lot of that richness, bringing balance to your bite. In general, a very good pork appetizer here. So far, so good. I actually really like the Cuban combo. Moving along, this is the ropa vieja empanada. Served alongside what looks like a sweet chili sauce. We'll give it a dip and a taste.
They have some pineapple salsa.
Okay, yeah, that's really tasty. I really like this empanada. Starting with that puff pastry, very flaky, nice and crisp. Not all too oily on my hands either. And just a slightly nutty flavor from that pastry. This is good. I really like the ropa vieja here. That beef is incredibly tender. It's also very juicy. It's very well seasoned, has a bit of a smoky edge to it. You can definitely make out just a hint of tang. A very well balanced marinade applied to that ropa vieja. It's very good. I do like this sweet sauce. It's something more like a sweet pineapple sauce. Provides a little bit of additional richness as well as that sweet flavor. Bring a little bit of balance to the overall savory nature of the empanada. A very flavorful little bite here. I like that empanada quite a bit. That's a really good one. All right, everyone, and the last dish that I'm trying from the appetizer round today is going to be their ceviche. Served alongside what looks like potato chips here. I've got a nice one assembled, the ceviche. Yeah, that is tasty. This is a solid ceviche recipe. Very fresh seafood here. I like the texture of the mahi-mahi that I had on my chip. A bit of a firmness to that fish and a mild flavor. That was good. A very fresh dish in general. There's a nice creamy nature to the ceviche. You can tell there's a bit of a dairy element to it. And a nice amount of citrus here balancing it all out. A well-executed ceviche with a bit of a creamy twist. All of that works fine for me. A pretty solid ceviche there. That was fine. All right, everyone, now that's all of the appetizers I'm trying today. My friend and I are going to continue working on this. We'll box them up to go, and then we'll do our first round of entrees. I'll be right back.
Nuestro amor por siempre vivirá.
welcome back, my friends. My first round of entrees just got here. This will be really good. Let me give you a view. We got their Orquesta Cubana, which is their big combo, some mahi-mahi tacos, as well as their vaca frita. This is all looking really tasty. Let's give it a try. Let's kick off the entrees with the vaca frita. Effectively just means fried cow, and it's a bit stringy looking. I've got a little bit on the fork here. Here's the vaca frita. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm not exactly sure what to think about this texture. I do like the fact that it is crispy. You definitely have some crispy portions of this beef, and those crispy portions provide a nice Maillard reaction. That is nice. Now, the beef here is cut with the grain, and so it creates a little bit of a stringy texture. While it's soft, I wouldn't exactly call this tender. It certainly requires a fair amount of chewing. Now, that said, it is a very well-seasoned dish. Nice amount of salt and pepper. You can definitely taste the garlic. And there's also some acid here. You can tell there's orange juice or lemon juice applied, and a bit of a smoky, earthy edge from some cumin. In general, this is pretty tasty. Now, the texture of this beef personally leaves a little bit to be desired, but I don't want to infringe too much upon a cultural classic. So if you're into this particular recipe, I think you're going to really like it here. Now, I did get some sides along with this vaca frita. First off is the black bean. I mean, this is a super classic Cuban dish. If you've had Cuban food before, I'm pretty sure you've had this black bean recipe. I certainly have, and hopefully it's good here at Havana. Let's give it a shot. Yes, that is good. Very well executed Cuban beans. I do like these here. A very earthy flavor to this dish. Obviously those black beans is providing a lot of that taste, but they have been well cooked, nice and soft, easy to chew through. And there's a certain richness to this dish also. There may be a fair amount of butter or something like that at play here. There's a subtle tang here at the end of the bite. Perhaps some vinegar at work here. Does create a bit of balance. A very nice Cuban bean side. Smoky, earthy Cuban beans. I always like them, and they're fine here in Havana. And the other side to come with my vaca frita, white rice. Let's give this a shot. That is so good. I cannot believe how good this rice is. My expectations were on the floor. I thought it was generic white rice, but it is so much more than that. Perfectly cooked. You have very fluffy rice here. Excellent texture, a nice glutinous flavor here as well. Everything about the rice is just fine. There's a certain savory richness here that I can't exactly put my finger on. If I had to take a guess, it's garlic, oil, and salt, and a little bit of sugar perhaps. There's a nice deep fortified flavor to this rice. I'm curious if this might have been cooked in some kind of a stock, maybe a chicken stock, because there's a lot of flavor here. I'm genuinely impressed. I was not expecting the white rice to be that good. Next up, mahi-mahi tacos. I'm not entirely sure if this is a classic Cuban dish. Seeing as how Havana 1957 has its roots in Florida, this makes a lot of sense to be on the menu. And I love a good fish taco. Let's see how it is here. That is very good. A pretty solid fish taco here. The mahi-mahi is firm, still has a nice mild flavor to it. It's well seasoned. You certainly taste it in the bite. I do like the fish in this taco. A nicely flavored slaw, not too creamy, but it does bring a certain richness to the bite. And it is a nicely seasoned slaw, very fresh vegetables here. You get a bit of a crisp from that cabbage. And the microgreens here provide a touch of bitterness. I do like the dressing here. It's not too heavy-handed, but does provide a little bit of a richness to the taco. And there's a certain earthy bitter flavor here. Maybe some beer or perhaps an apple cider vinegar, something very similar to that is showing up in the middle of the bite. A nice depth of flavor here in general. Works perfectly fine for me. A nice little fish taco right there. Next up, I'm gonna go in on the Orquesta Cubana. This is their big Cuban combo that comes along with their chicken, their ropa vieja, as well as their pork. It also comes with sides. We have some rice, black beans, as well as plantains here. And this is all looking really tasty. Let's give them a try. First off, the chicken. Now this is Havana 1957 signature chicken. It's the only entree on its own that's actually highlighted in the menu. So I'm expecting some good things from this one. Let's give it a shot. Oh, that is very tasty. Now this is an excellent chicken dish. So you have a nice chicken breast here, and while I wouldn't say it's the juiciest chicken I've ever had, it's certainly not the driest. Regardless of the texture of the meat, the flavor here is incredible. This seasoning is so bright and so robust. I'm starting to get addicted. A nice briny flavor to this chicken. It's certainly not bland, and there's such a bright acidic note right up front. Some very sour orange juice or lemons have been applied here that set up your taste buds for a lot of flavor, really helping to wake them up. You have a bit of a warm, earthy spice here. You can definitely taste the influence of oregano and cumin. Nice amounts of garlic also. This is just a very good recipe. I think I would literally eat this chicken and that white rice all on its own. A very good chicken here. If that was just a little bit juicy, I would call that absolute perfection. Next up is the ropa vieja. Now this was the very first Cuban dish I ever tried. For most people, I want to say it's the Cuban sandwich, but for me, I happen to get my hands on this. It's certainly a recipe I really enjoy, and I'm hoping it's good here. Let's give it a try. Oh yeah, that is good. A very nice ropa vieja here. Incredibly soft beef. This is super tender. Now that I'm tasting it, I am remembering that I had a little bit of it in the empanada. However, having it on its own really lets those flavors shine. Such a deep, aromatic, smoky flavor when it comes to the taste profile. You can tell a lot of chilies have been stewed for hours to develop this level of flavor. Savory, just a little bit smoky, and again, just a little bit of tang on the back end. You can tell there's some vinegar in the recipe to help balance that a bit, but I gotta say, this is just a very, very good tasting beef. I will say in the aftertaste, it is a little bit on the salty side, but that's just making me reach more for this white rice, so that makes me happy anyways. A really good ropa vieja here, I like that a lot. Now the last protein from the combo is gonna be the roasted pork. Roasted pork is definitely a Cuban classic, so I've got a nice amount on the fork here. Roasted pork. Oh yeah, that was tasty. A very nice roasted pork dish. Although flavor profile-wise, I would say this is the most straightforward. You do have a nice soft pork, very well roasted. It's incredibly juicy and succulent. I like the cook on this. The seasoning is more straightforward here than any of the other proteins. But while it's simple, it is generous. You really get to taste the flavor of the pork here. I do like the way that shines through. Just a hint of natural sweetness coming from these sweated onions. Soft pork that's not bland is always good in my book. A nice dish right there, that's just fine. Now it's time to move on to the last two sides on this round of entrees. First, I'm going to start with the arroz moro, effectively translating the black rice. And I've certainly had this many times in my travels to Cuban restaurants. Hopefully it's good here at Havana. Arroz moro. Yeah, it's good. I'd say a pretty solid arroz moro here. A nice cook to the rice, just like the white rice. Not too gummy, a nice bouncy texture, a good chew to this. You get an earthiness from the black beans that have been incorporated into the dish. And in general, there's a nice smoky flavor here. Although it is well seasoned and has some decent flavor, I actually think the white rice here is head and shoulders better. I think that's actually a first at a Cuban restaurant where I prefer the white rice over the arroz moro. But there's a first time for everything, but honestly, both are fine. All right, everyone, and the last bite that I'm trying from this first round of entrees is going to be the tostones. These are plantains that have been pressed down and fried into something like a big chip, and I've certainly enjoyed these in the past. Hopefully they're good here. Tostones. Yeah, it's good. I'd say a perfect textbook run-of-the-mill tostones here. A nice shallow fry to these, a little bit of crisp to that exterior, and a densely pressed plantain center. There's a certain weight and thickness to the bite that you're probably not expecting if you haven't had tostones before. Being plantains, you might think that there's a bit of a sweetness here, but it's actually quite savory, very starchy, as well as a bit of salinity from the nice finishing salt applied. It is good. Despite the fact that it is shallow fried, it's actually not all that greasy, which is nice. And in general, just well-made tostones here. They certainly have a lot of the classics down pat, that's fine. All right, everyone, now that's all of the food I'm trying from this first round of entrees. My buddy and I can continue working on this and then box up the rest to go. And then when we do our next round of food, don't worry, I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Now my last round of entrees just got here. This is looking really good. Let me give you a view. I got their Cuban sandwich as well as a double smash burger, their fish and chips, Chasco Steak, as well as their shrimp scampi. These are pretty tasty looking. Let's give them a try. We're going to start things off with the double smash burger. You may come here with a group that doesn't have as many adventurous eaters, and so I want to make sure that I shoot as much range as possible. I'd say a burger is relatively accessible for most folks. Let's see how it is here in Havana's. Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, I'd say this is a pretty classic standard burger here. A bit more of a crusty bun than I was expecting. A slightly harder exterior, but still an airy and pillowy center. A slight sweetness to this bread as well, and it has been toasted to provide some structure. A nice burger bun here. The produce at Havana's is just fine. Nice fresh lettuce, a good sweetness from that tomato, onions and pickles, your standard fixings for a burger. I don't know if I would exactly call these smashed patties. They are a little bit more standard in my book, but they do have a decent crust that's been formed on them. So they've been pressed down a little bit harder into that grill, and they've been well seasoned, decent burger patties here. You have a Thousand Island dressing, providing a bit of a sweetness, some richness, as well as some tang. And they're using American cheese here, which is my preferred cheese for a burger. All of this is fine. A classically prepared, well-executed burger with some solid ingredients. I'd say this is just fine. Next up, let's try the Chasco Steak. You can effectively kind of think about this as like a carne asada. We have a skirt steak here, and I'm going to give it a dip into the chimichurri. And let's see how the steak is here. Yeah, it's pretty good. A well-executed skirt steak. I asked for my steak prepared mid-rare. It looks like they hit temperature, a bit of a warm pink center here. The beef flavor is relatively robust and it is well seasoned. You do get a bit of a smoky flavor here from the char marks that have been applied from the grill. I would say on its own, it's a pretty decent steak. When you add the chimichurri, the flavors really start to pop off. A nice freshness to that chimichurri, you certainly get that parsley, but definitely a lot more richness. You certainly get a bit of an oily mouthfeel when you apply the sauce. A nice brightly flavored steak with that sauce though. In general, this is quite tasty. Not a bad steak at all, I enjoyed that. Next up, shrimp scampi. Certainly a dish that I really enjoy. I was a little bit surprised to find it on the menu here. I wasn't exactly familiar with the fact that this was a Cuban dish, but hopefully it's good here at Havana. Shrimp scampi. No, unfortunately, I can't say I'm the biggest fan of this one. Let's start with the good. I do like the linguine pasta here. It is passed al dente, but it does have a relatively firm texture. A relatively starchy flavor to that noodle as well. I'm actually totally happy with this linguine. The shrimp in this pasta dish is quite good. Cleanly deveined, succulent and plump, with a little bit of that sweet shrimp flavor. In general, I would say the shrimp and the pasta are just fine. I think my biggest issue is currently with this sauce. It does have all the elements of a standard shrimp scampi. Olive oil, butter, garlic. You do get a bit of a crisp, dry taste coming from the white wine that's been reduced. The basics of the scampi are just fine. What's odd for me is that they've also incorporated a lot of Cuban flavors here, very much like a mojo. And I can't say that it's working all that well for me. There is an extremely tangy citrus here. Far more acid than I'm typically used to with any kind of shrimp scampi. Very in line with Cuban flavors, however, it's a bit off-putting here. There's a bit of a pungent, warm earthiness coming from the cumin as well as the oregano here. And in conjunction with that very tart citrus, it competes for your attention with the standard scampi flavors. I wouldn't say it mixes all that well. It's actually two distinct flavors that you're tasting back and forth. I wouldn't exactly say this is a symphony of flavors, more of a cacophony. Not my favorite shrimp scampi, unfortunately. Continuing with some more seafood, let's try the fish and chips. Now they serve you a single enormous piece of fish. I've cut off a bit, we'll dip it into the tartar sauce here. Let's see how this is. Oh, that's very good. This is a well-prepared piece of fried fish. A beer-infused batter, you certainly get a little bit of that hoppy bitterness. It's well seasoned, it tastes great, but it really comes down to the texture that I'm enjoying the most. A very nice fry to this, ultra crispy on the outside, and you can tell they've achieved a little bit more of this airy, bubbly texture using baking soda or something similar. Actually, it could be the yeast from the beer, but regardless, the texture of the exterior of this fish is quite good. Now they're using a codfish here, very mild in flavor, quite flaky, but it is just a tad on the dry side. I think just a little bit more moisture in this fish would make this an 11 out of 10. A very nice herby tartar sauce here. It's creamy and rich. You definitely get the influence of tarragon and dill here. It complements this beer battered fish very deliciously. A really solid fried fish, I like that a lot. All right, everyone, and the last bite I'm trying from this round of entrees is gonna be their Kubano sandwich. I actually love a really good Kubano sandwich, though it's been a long time since I've had one. And this is already looking so good. Kubano sandwich time. Oh yeah, that was really good. Excellent Cubano here in Havana. I think I actually like everything about this. To start the discussion, I really got to talk about this bread. A good Cubano needs to have good Cuban bread, and I'm very happy to report that the Cuban loaf here at Havana is excellent. It's everything a Cuban roll should be, has a nice nutty earthy flavor, and it's been baked perfectly. A very rustic, crispy crust. Scored beautifully, you got some really nice texture here, with a satisfying soft, flaky bread center. I've already told you my thoughts on the mojo pork here, but I must reiterate, it is very good. It's succulent, well seasoned, with a nice tender texture. It works so well here. Nice slices of ham provide an additional smoky salinity, and a mild richness coming from the Swiss cheese. I have a little bit of a sour tang coming from the pickles, and a pungent flavor coming from the spread of mustard. It's smoky, savory, slightly tangy, with a really satisfying crunch from that toasted bread. This is everything you want in a Cubano, and I must say I really like it here at Havana. All right, everyone, now that's all the food I'm trying today. These entrees did come with sides, however, we've already tried the French fries, the rice, as well as those black beans. So I'm gonna take a few more bites, and my buddy and I are gonna box this all up to go, and then we'll do some dessert next. Don't go anywhere, because sweets are coming up. And welcome back, everyone. It's definitely time for some sweets. Let's take a look at the dessert menu together. Here is your dessert menu in Havana's 1957. It looks like everything is $14. Taking a look, just 4 options here: a chocolate cake, a flan, cheesecake, and tres leches cake. As well as some after-dinner cocktails. Looks like these run $16 a piece. And that's a pretty simple dessert menu here at Havana. a nice and simple dessert menu. I'm gonna go and get my order in, but for all of you at home, I'm gonna make that dessert appear right now. And here it is, everyone. Today I went with our Cuban flan. I always enjoy a good flan, and this is served with both powdered sugar as well as whipped cream. And I've got some on the spoon here. Even though I'm super full, there's always a little bit of room for some dessert, right? Let's activate the dessert stomach. Give this a try. Oh yeah, that's tasty. I'd say a pretty straightforward flan recipe here. You do have a nice sweet vanilla custard. It's quite thick. There's definitely a bouncy chew to this, but still a very smooth flan. I do like the texture. I wouldn't exactly call this overly sweet either. There's actually much more of a nutty sweetness coming from the caramel than the flan itself. A bit of an airy quality and sweetness coming from that whipped cream. But in general, this is a perfectly fine flan dessert that comes together well. A nice little way to end the meal. That was just fine. All right, everyone, now that's gonna do it for my late lunch here at Havana 57 at the Flamingo Las Vegas. All the food you saw in the video today comes out to $350 before tip, and I really enjoyed myself today. The guacamole and pork carnitas was easily my favorite appetizer. I cannot believe how good that was. Both the ropa vieja as well as Havana's chicken are both excellent here. And from that last round, the Cuban sandwich is easily the most memorable. If you're in the mood for some Cuban eats or you're staying at the Flamingo and you're looking for something to eat, this is what you can expect here at Havana's 1957. All right, everyone, now that's going to do it for this week's video. Make sure you return next Saturday for another installment of my quest to vlog every restaurant from the Las Vegas Strip as well as downtown on Fremont Street. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic week, and I hope you enjoy Vegas with me, Shin. Bye.